I work at a KFC in Colorado. I've worked for the company for 3 years now, and I started at an older store and recently moved to a newer one. The older store I worked at was in a smaller town, not quite small enough to say that the closest neighbors were very far away, but it didn't have any big businesses there. The closest Walmart was about 5 miles down the road, at the very edge of town. Besides that, Dairy Queen, Sonic, and KFC were the only other franchises in town. The place was really out of the way. We always closed early as well because we got maybe 6 customers from 8 to 9. We were, however, supposed to close at 10, so we still got a few cars from time to time because none of the big bosses in the company knew we closed too early. That old store had a broken door, so people could still get inside if we didn't make sure to shut it all the way, giving it that little extra nudge. Most of the time, people were understanding about it, but there were a few that weren't that normal. There was one group who came in when we only had the drive-thru still open. There were 3 men altogether, and they had been drinking. One of them apparently had trouble with his pants because he literally had his junk hanging out. There were currently only 3 women still there, none of us prepared to defend ourselves, and 1 man, our fry cook. The cooks were usually gone sooner because they didn't cook anything in the last hour and a half. We were open, but they still needed to clean their area. Now the cook was in the back when they came in, as he was just finishing up. He noticed we were having trouble with these guys, so he stood next to my cousin, who worked with us, taking the order as I prepared it to quickly get them out of here. We made sure the door was locked and closed it afterwards, and that was the quick end to the worst experience of my first year. The next year, I still worked at the small store. This experience happened when I forgot to check the door, meaning it wasn't shut all the way and could still be opened. My manager told me this story the next day. Some guy came in tripping more than usual. With these types of people, it was common for us to make them meals that were weird, like they would often try to order what was basically a Scooby-Doo sandwich. We'd get people stacking things as high as possible, adding so many things to their food that it made it inedible and crazy expensive. Well, on a certain night, a night that I didn't lock the door like I thought I did, it was 11 p.m. and the store should have been closed, but everyone was running behind with their duties to close up. Then in walks this guy. Again, he was tripping hard. Instead of going up to the register, he just sat down in the lobby, not making any noise. My manager said she grabbed the pan grabber, just in case she needed to defend herself. Then she walked over to speak to the man. He didn't respond, instead he just stared at her. His hands were fumbling around behind his back under his shirt, as if he was wondering if he should pull something out from behind there or leave it alone. Why was he acting that way? And what did he have back there? My manager didn't know, and she was starting to get worried. Suddenly, one of the ovens going through its cleaning cycle made a loud noise, so she took the chance to call Isaac, one of the cooks, who had been working really late that night, and asked him if he was almost done, which was her inconspicuous way of calling for help without panicking this unpredictable fellow. Now the strange man, seeing that she wasn't alone in the store and that Isaac was a bit bigger than him, got up from his seat and walked outside of the building. Apparently he hadn't driven a car, and being all the way out here, there's really nothing very close by, so he must have walked quite the distance to get there and didn't order anything. That man was up to no good, and my manager knew it, and to this day she believes she got through that mess by the skin of her teeth. It still gives me goosebumps to think about what would have happened had that man gone through with whatever he had been planning. Now, this year I'm in a new store that just opened. This one's in the middle of a shopping center, so we get more people and stay open later. The store is in a big parking lot housing many businesses, and there are a few strange things that happen, a lot of sketchy people. But these sketchy people try to avoid being noticed, so if there are still cars in the parking lot, we're typically pretty safe. But just recently, a lady was trying to get inside. One of our guys opened the door to see if she needed help and told her, "Sorry, we're closed." But she forced her way inside anyway. I was in the back of the building, putting a bag in a trash can, the last thing I had to do for the night, when another guy pokes his head around the corner and says, "Someone got inside." One more guy and my manager, the same manager from the previous story, and myself look up. It's 11:15 p.m. No one should be here. We all walk up to the counter, letting her know that she is outnumbered. The lady pulls out these long black gloves and begins to ask if anyone could give her a ride. Now, I may be a paranoid person, but I have no problem giving a ride to someone in need. But this woman, I didn't know her, and something just felt awfully strange about her. So we all apologized and said no. Then she walked out of the building and met up with a man in the middle of the parking lot who had a shopping cart full of different things. But it was too dark to make out exactly what. Then she took her gloves off, pulled something out of her pocket, and put it in the shopping cart. Then they both walked away. There's only one question I have from that encounter. What were they planning to do? Anyway, I only have one thing to say after all of this. Don't go to a place after hours trying to get business. People are trying to do their jobs and go home like you. And sometimes the people who do come too late, they're not there for food. My family and I were one day coming back from the beach, and we were famished. It was pretty late out, already getting dark. After having an argument with my siblings, we all finally decided on KFC. We went inside the lobby. There were only 2 other people there. Again, it was pretty late, probably almost their closing time. We ordered our food and then sat down. After I sat down, I realized there was sand all over me, so I went to the bathroom to wash my hands. I thought I was the only one in there. I turned the water on and began to work on my business when I suddenly heard a toilet seat violently close, as if someone wanted to be heard. I was suddenly startled and looked behind me at the stalls. Save for the water running in the sink, it was silent once more. Feeling a bit suspicious, I looked down below the stalls to see if there were any feet, but I didn't see anything. I seemed to be as alone as I thought I was. I shrugged and finished washing my hands. Then I left the bathroom and sat down. But something was nagging at me, and I found myself staring at the bathroom off and on, wanting to see if anyone else who came out after entering had a weird expression on their face, but no one else went in. I had been the only one. Now, here's where it gets really weird. All of a sudden, during the middle of our meal, a man walks out of the supposedly empty bathroom, and he's a mess, his pants and shirt torn all over. My mouth was wide open, looking at the man. There was someone in there, and he had been trying to hide from me. I shook my head, thinking that maybe I had missed seeing someone go in, even though I'd been staring at that bathroom door. Or I thought maybe someone was hiding because they were feeling sick and didn't want to be embarrassed or spotted. But those theories were all thrown out the window because the man sat down across the way from me and stared back at me. Then he smiled. Then he winked at me. He knew what I was thinking. I turned back to my food and finished up quickly. I wanted to leave this place and never come back. As we finished our food, we got up and made our way to the door. And that's when I noticed the man had stopped looking at me and instead was staring at his phone, a smartphone that didn't really match his appearance. The door was on the other side of the man across the lobby. And as I walked past him to get to the door, I turned and looked down at him. He was still looking at his phone. I glanced at the screen, and my eyes widened. It was me at the sink, the water running. It was me in the bathroom, being startled by the sound of the toilet seat, yet seeing no one in the bathroom with me. Yet, it was the angle that scared me the most. He wasn't filming me from a stall. He was filming from above me. He was hiding in the tiles on the ceiling. I hurried my friends out of the building, and we never went back near that KFC. The place is 3 hours away from where I live, and I will never go back there. I worked at a Taco Bell KFC hybrid store, and I always knew something was weird about the place. You would always get chills down your spine, even if you were standing next to those hot ovens. You would also get what felt like someone breathing on you at times, and things would go missing, only to be found in the weirdest, and I mean weirdest places. One night when I was the closing manager, it was about time to close. I'd gone outside, turned off the menu lights, and as I'm closing the back door behind me, someone whispers into the speaker box in the drive-thru. I knew there was no one there, and I was right. The cameras showed there were no cars or kids near the box. What was odd was that the box could only be activated if you pulled a car up to it. This freaked me out a little bit, but I quickly reminded myself that the box was old, and someone had even hit it with their cars a couple of days before, so maybe it was just going haywire. I should also mention that there were only 2 people that night, my coworker Nick and myself, and I was the only one with a headset on. As I was doing my manager's tasks, I made Nick count the money tails in the office. Now, something to know is that when he counts money, he always locks the office door behind him. I started gathering the trash and went to throw it out. As I was walking back, I saw a shadowy figure in the doorway where I had just walked out. I blinked and rubbed my eyes, and the figure was no longer there. I was exhausted after a long day's work and thought I was just seeing things. I walked back in, and as I did, I smelled the worst stench I'd ever smelled. It was like some rotting animal. I thought that may be the trash, since Taco Bell meat and KFC chicken don't really mix well together under a hot sun in a metal dumpster. I get inside and lock the back door, and then I start cutting up the boxes. Now, where I was in the back room, the only way you can see out of the door is if you're on the left of the doorway looking out, and all you can really see is the prep food area. As I was cutting the boxes, I got bored, and I went and grabbed my phone, which was by the drive-through window. So I walked out and set a box on the prep table, grabbed my phone, and walked back. I was distracted for a few seconds picking some music to listen to, so I forgot to grab the box that I had set down and went back to cutting boxes in the back. Maybe 5 minutes later, something hits me in the back hard, and it stings. I turn around, nearly yelling, "What the heck?" only to see that it was the box I had forgotten on the counter. This really scared me. I turned toward the front, wanting to know who did that, and I saw the color red moving from the doorway back into the kitchen. I thought I saw Nick, since our normal work shirts were red. I ran after him, and I went to the office and tried opening it, but it was locked. I knocked, and Nick opened the door. Then I demanded that he tell me why he threw that at me. He looked at me confused, and that's when I finally realized he was wearing the manager shirt that day. Manager shirts are black. I was still confused, so I decided to rewind the camera. What I saw made my heart sink. I saw the box lying completely motionless, sitting there, and then it just launched itself at me. There was no one there. We watched it a couple of times, and every time we saw it, the more I became distressed. And then there was a loud bang. We ran out, and all the food containers and drawers, pretty much everything, were out and had been ransacked. We heard the bang again, and once more we ran to where we heard it. It was in the walk-in freezer. We're almost to the freezer when the door just swings open. I literally fall back onto my butt, nearly screaming. That door is extremely heavy. It's not a door that can be opened from air pressure alone. I was done with that night. I told Nick we needed to get out of there. I ran out with our things, and I managed to shut off the lights as we left. Once we were outside, I locked the door, but the moment it locked, the lobby doors began to shake as if some deranged person was trying to get out desperately. Then it stopped. I dropped to my knees. I didn't know what to do. I had never experienced something like this. Then Nick screams. It startles me, and I look over at him, and he's looking through the windows by the doors, and I swear to God, there were two red orbs like eyes sitting there. I was not about to assume those were two red eyes, so I looked behind us, expecting to see brake lights or something, but no, it was dark. Yet there were those red eyes in the window. The two of us ran like we were running in a marathon. After trying to comprehend what happened, we both go our separate ways and head home. I texted the morning manager that I was sorry for the mess and that I would come in early to explain what happened and to help them fix it. Once home, I smudged myself, a cleansing to drive away negativity and purify yourself. The next morning, I went back and hesitated going back inside that building. I pulled myself together and walked in. The place was clean, as if nothing had happened. The morning manager was there. Let's call her Kay. I explained everything to her. She didn't believe me right away, so I asked if we could review the tapes. She eventually relented. We get to the point where the box launches itself at me, and the video goes black, and it stays black. I remember thinking, now she'll never believe me. Before Kay could utter a word, we heard the same bang bang banging coming from outside the manager's office again. It was the same sound I had heard the previous night, and when we walked out, we were met with the same sight. The place was ransacked again. Kay was horrified, and so was I. We both walked out of the building and waited for the rest of the crew. But after these experiences, Nick, Kay, and I all quit the next day. Anywhere else would be better than that KFC Taco Bell.